Hello everyone, my name is João Rato. I'm a PhD student at the University of 𝘲𝘲𝘀, and today I'm going to present our latest work where we assess the propagule pressure on exotic pet turtles. So turtles are among the most traded species worldwide. Here we have an example for the reptiles. We can see they're the second most traded species worldwide, and we also have here the top 5 most traded families. This is important because the species that are more traded are more likely to be released to the wild than species that are low traded. And this raises a question that is, how should we quantify the species that are being traded? And we can use CITES database, but this database only includes CITES listed species and also only includes wild-caught specimens. How should we include the non-listed species? And also, how should we include the species traded in illegal and unregulated markets? Because, like we can see here in the figure, physical stores and regulated markets only include a small part of the whole trade. So we quantify the propagular pressure in exotic pet turtles across illegal and illegal markets using Portugal as case study. We assess the diversity and availability of those turtles, the composition of those turtles in social media, the relation between the propagular pressure and the occurrences on the wild, and also if the trade, the online trade, represented the whole physical trade. We collected data from physical and online stores, as well as online platforms and social media. We recorded the species that were being sold, but also the age of the turtles for the social media. We then developed the relative market pressure as an index to the propagular pressure. And this index basically multiplies the frequency of a species in a trade type by the frequency of this trade type in all trade types, and then sums up the multiplications that were resulted for all trade types combined. So, turtle diversity, we can see that the species that were most traded across all trade types was 𝘲𝘲𝘶 chinensis, and we also can see that there is a match between the online trade and the social media, with the most traded species being 𝘲𝘲𝘶 chinensis, but also 𝘀𝘁𝘶_his𝗱. Here we also can see that the trade with most species, with most diverse trade, was the online stores. Okay, so here we can see that there is a big match between the online stores and the physical stores, because both of them only include non-forbidden species and also only include both aquatic and terrestrial species. And also we can see that there is a match between online trade and social media, because they include both forbidden and non-forbidden species and only include aquatic species. These forbidden species here are the ones that are prohibited under the Portuguese law on invasive species, which includes 𝘀𝘁𝘶_his𝗱. After that, we calculated the relative market pressure for all these species, and we found that there are some differences between the occurrences in the trade and the relative market pressure. Here for the top 10, top 10 traded species, there is the difference between the relative market pressure in the occurrences for these three species, so the 𝘀𝘁cie𝗿𝗄 and the two 𝗲𝘃𝘆𝑚𝑖 species. This means that the relative market pressure might be a, a good index to quantify propagule pressure, particularly when we have different sources for these propagules, in this case different trades, but or different markets, but it can also apply to different introduction routes or other examples. After that, we looked to the social media data and we saw that we had available turtles from less than a year to almost 20 years. Forbidden species were present in all age classes, and most turtles available were between 1 and 4 years. One particularly worrying finding was that there were available turtles with less than a year that were from forbidden species. So the Portuguese law does not allow the breeding of forbidden species, and if we have and this law has more than 5 years now, and if we have turtles with less than a year, those turtles are being bred. Then we then did a model to see if population density and trade explain wild records, and both of them explain wild records of exotic turtles. Areas that had higher population density had also more records of exotic turtles, and areas with higher trade of turtles also had higher records of wild turtles. Population density is widely described in the literature that has this effect on invasive and exotic species. Trade is not so often described as a variable to explain the records on the wild. But we must take in account that the response was dependent of some species, because for 𝘀𝘁𝘁_, for instance, only population density explain the wild records and not trade. Okay. Finally, we try to see if the data from online stores and online trade and social media could represent the physical stores, and we only found a weak link between the two of them. Sorry. And we need more data to corroborate this. Okay, so basically we cannot extrapolate nothing from the online trade to the physical trade by our data. So the take-home messages are basically that the traditional trade is underestimating the turtles trade, the total trade, and you should include online trade, both in online stores and online platforms, and also social media data to when we try to quantify the trade of turtles. We need stronger law enforcement on online trade. That's where we found forbidden species, and particularly we need it in social media because it's where we found forbidden species with less than a year. The relative market pressure seems to be a good index to quantify propagule pressure, particularly when we have different sources of these propagules, and we need additional measures such as regulated adoption programs for unwanted turtles and size restrictions on sales. So we should restrict the minimal size allowed to the turtles being sold, so we don't have cases like this after 1 year or two of they being at people's home. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you can contact me.